Hello, welcome to BBC World News. We begin with a special investigation by the BBC's Persian service. It's found the number of deaths from coronavirus in Iran is nearly 3 times higher than the government there claims. The first recorded death occurred on the 22nd of January, according to leaked medical documents. Now, that's almost a month before the first official case was reported. The documents show that on some days, the actual numbers of deaths was 10 times higher than the official figure. In all, the data shows deaths were undercounted by more than 27,000 up to the 20th of July. Iran's health ministry has rejected this, insisting that the country reports to the World Health Organization and those figures are accurate. Behram Tarajdin from the BBC Persian service has the story for us.
Gasping for air in the last hours of life. Hossein Mollai became Iran's first official coronavirus victim on the 19th of February. His brothers, who are doctors, posted this video on social media. After that, officials were left with no choice but to admit that COVID-19 was killing Iranians. But it turns out his death from the virus was not Iran's first. The BBC has seen what appear to be 2 official government documents. They contain every hospital patient they think was infected by COVID-19 and all those they suspect died with the virus. Together, they show Iran's epidemic started earlier and was far deadlier than the officials said it was. Now we know the first death was actually a full month before officials came clean. The data suggests that on some days in February and March, COVID-19 deaths were more than 10 times higher than what officials were announcing. In total, 41,952 people have died in hospitals up to the 20th of July, 3 times as many as the official death toll. This figure puts Iran amongst the 5 worst hit countries in the world. This is an extraordinary leak. The files include a vast amount of personal and medical details. Names, addresses, phone numbers, and whether they had a history of respiratory or cardiac disease. There are nearly 500,000 records listed in the 2 files, and the BBC has made strenuous efforts to authenticate the data. The whistleblower told us that passing on this information was dangerous but worth it.
Risking my life, I'm sending you the lists of coronavirus infections and deaths in all the hospitals of the country. I urge you to publish these figures as you see fit, so we can save some patients' lives.
Why would Iran cover up the true scale of the outbreak? The pandemic started in the run-up to parliamentary elections in February. It was only after those elections that Iran started imposing some restrictions to stop the spread. As the economy was already in a deep recession, the government let businesses reopen in mid-spring. Leaders of the Islamic Republic fear any sign of weakness may be used by its enemies. Maybe that's why they hid the true scale of the pandemic. Behram Tarajdin, BBC News.
We're going to return to our top story now. Leaked Iranian documents seen by the BBC Persian service suggest the number of coronavirus deaths in Iran have been drastically underestimated. They are nearly 3 times higher than what is being officially reported. So let's speak now to Seyed Mohammad Marandi. He's a professor of English Literature and Orientalism at Tehran University. Thank you for joining us. Why are the authorities hiding the truth about coronavirus deaths in Iran?
Well, to be very blunt, BBC Persian is lying. And I've spoken to senior officials in the health ministry. They're saying that this is bogus, this is fake news. The real cover-up is that the United States has been preventing Iran from fighting the coronavirus, and it's been preventing Iran from obtaining the supplies needed. Right now, South Korea is holding $8 billion of Iranian money and will release it so that the Iranians can fight it. But the numbers that Iran gives are supported by the World Health Organization. Anyone who goes to the websites of the Eastern Mediterranean Office of the World Health Organization will see that the Iranian numbers consists of 2/3 of the website, of that part of the website. In other words, the Iranian numbers have much greater detail than Saudi Arabia or any other country.
Professor
Why?
Marandi, our colleagues, I have to interrupt you to defend our colleagues at BBC Persian. The whistleblower who gave them these documents is risking his or her life. These are detailed government documents that have been seen, that have been strenuously checked by our colleagues.
No, they're fabricated.
They also tally and are corroborated by research that was done by MIT and the Virginia Tech University in the US. They did some modelling in March that put the infection rates in Iran at 10 times the official figure. So this sort of tallies with those figures produced out of the US as well.
No, that's nonsense. And let me just give you one reason why it is nonsense and why your website is saying nonsense. Your English website says that the Iranians covered up the coronavirus during the parliamentary elections so that the turnout would go high. And they were saying that the intelligence organizations were putting pressure on the Ministry of Health. People should go to your website right now before you change it and take a look. The Iranians declared their first victims of the virus 2 days before the election. This is open source.
Sarah, I think you'll find the website says that it's lockdowns and restrictions that were put in place after the elections. No, and perhaps given the severity of the pandemic, they should have been put in place beforehand.
The government declared that there's a coronavirus 2 days before the election, and that caused the turnout to come very much lower. If the Iranian government wanted to declare, if they wanted to cover it up, they would have declared it after the election. In addition to that, only 2 days before declaring the first person who had the coronavirus did Iran receive its first kits. The Americans prevented Iran from importing kits. The World Health Organization, in a ceremony, handed over their first batch 2 days before the Iranians discovered the first person who has the illness. And on that very same day, within 24 hours, they declared it publicly, and that was 2 days before the election.
Professor, what about the pictures that have emerged? You know, they went viral in Iran too, of mortuaries that were overstretched, really sad pictures of cemeteries where we saw trenches with multiple bodies being buried as well. Clearly, your country is really suffering with the pandemic. Are you satisfied with the government's response?
No, what I'm not satisfied with is how the BBC is relying on BBC Persian. And BBC Persian is a propaganda outlet against Iran. I understand there's a war, a propaganda war going on between Western powers and Iran. But I think the BBC should keep a distance from BBC Persian. Your prime minister almost died. When, at the beginning, when the outbreak broke in Iran, BBC Persian was giving a very dark image of Iran to Iranians, trying to depress Iranians. When the deputy minister of health became ill, BBC Persian day and night was saying how incompetent the Iranian government is because the deputy minister of health got ill. But then when your prime minister almost died, BBC Persian said nothing, because the agenda in BBC Persian was to create despair in Iran, to create depression. Just a couple of days ago, BBC Persian invited some cleric on television to tell people in Iran to go to major gatherings.
Professor Marandi, we do have to leave it there, but we appreciate you taking the time. We will be talking to our colleagues whose work we do very much respect coming up later in the programme. Thank you very much. As I mentioned, some serious allegations there from Professor Marandi in Iran, and I will be speaking to our colleagues at BBC Persian who did extensive research and checking of these leaked documents they received, government documents from Iran. Many hours of work went into checking those figures. We'll be talking to them a little bit later. Those documents suggesting that the number of coronavirus deaths in Iran 3 times higher than officially reported. The government currently saying 17,000 people have died there.